What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Beginner Bike Giveaway series. This is our brand new Husqvarna Svartpilen 401, one of 5 motorcycles we're giving away this time. So click the link down below and learn how you can win a fun, cool motorcycle. But today we're comparing and contrasting it to the KTM Duke 390, which, spoiler alert, they're super similar, but also a little bit different. Big shout out to Rockform for sponsoring our video today. Gonna tell you a little about them right now. Rockform makes the toughest and easiest motorcycle mounting system. Their protective cases look great and will protect your phone even if you happen to drop it while you're off the bike. They've got cases for basically all different kinds of phones, and their locking mechanism is really cool because it's so low profile. Other motorcycle mounts are huge and bulky and grip in a way that is not super confidence inspiring. The Rockform mount locks into place and has a magnetic feature from the case to the mount. It's really easy to install too, with just 2 bolts, and with different rubber inserts, it's basically guaranteed to fit any bar. With loads of 5-star reviews, they're the mount to get, and I'm really stoked to be working with them. Right now, if you click the link below and use the code YN25, you'll get 25% off your whole order. Thanks again to Rockform for supporting the channel, and remember, if you love the content we make here, to be sure to support the folks who help make it all possible. Once again, YN25 gets a 25% off your order, so don't miss out.
So we thought it would be fun to talk, since they're so similar, about the kind of design ethos that KTM has and Husqvarna has for these 2 different bikes. And thankfully enough, they've written a little mission statement for each bike. And according to KTM, the Duke 390 is a pure example of what draws so many to the thrills of street motorcycling. This corner rocket maximizes enjoyment and user value, taking the honors wherever nimble handling counts. That's pretty up there.
I would say that's pretty accurate. I think the KTM, when you're sat upon it, it's this fun little peppy little sport bike that has almost a supermoto flavor to it. So yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. The Husky over here, they've kind of shortened it a little bit. And it says it's a progressive, rugged motorcycle with timeless appeal designed to endure the demands of urban exploration. Now there's some key words that I want to kind of hone in on there. We're saying rugged, progressive, urban exploration, right? So it really tells you that this motorcycle is not really a sport bike, even though it's derived from a sport bike. It's more designed to be an around the town, really good looking, interesting kind of bike. But really they're powered by the same engine. They got the same 373cc single cylinder engine from KTM. This one has some cool little Husqvarna cases on it, so it looks a little bit different. Upon further inspection, the exhausts are actually a little bit different on these motorcycles. The KTM actually wraps up and around, the Svartpilen wraps down and out, which honestly, they should probably be swapped, because this bike with its knobby tires, which we're going to get into, should probably have a high pipe going out of it, so you could have a little bit more ground clearance for all that rugged urban exploration that you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of like a weird oversight. They say exploration right in their mission statement, and yet they have this, you know, giant exhaust can underneath the front of the bike.
Yeah, I would not want to hop a curb with this motorcycle. The chassis and the frame are also pretty much identical. The only difference is the Husky's over here is painted black versus orange over here in the KTM. The frames on these 2 motorcycles are actually identical. Husqvarna has this black one over here and the KTM has this orange, but the subframe on the Husqvarna is a little bit different, and they've done that to improve pillion comfort and a little bit more purchase over here for them to sit on. A couple other things on this motorcycle you'll first notice is the tires as well, right? Like this one's got these knobbies, this Pirelli Rally Scorpion, it's a great tire, I've got it on my sled. The KTM has these Metzlers over here. They're perfectly fine for street duty. I hate them on track. I had them on my Rossi 390. They suck, they wash out really fast. So if you are planning on using the KTM for its mission statement, for popping dank nooners and flicking it around corners, definitely swap out those tires. Spite, what else do you notice?
Immediately, still dealing with the wheels, we have spoked wheels here on the Husky, and we've got just normal cast wheels on the Duke. And I mean, if you're going through just aesthetics, this would have to have spoked wheels, just because it fits the aesthetic of the bike.
Absolutely. I'm of the opinion that if you have knobby tires, you must have spoked wheels. They have to go together. And spoked wheels are actually, there's quite a few benefits over spoked wheels over cast aluminum. These are gonna have more flex and a little bit more stability versus the cast ones. These are a little bit cheaper to make as well. So I think this is a really nice touch on this bike. It looks awesome.
Yeah. And then when you're sitting on both of these bikes, with the exception of the TFT Dash, you're basically looking at the same set of controls. I mean, you've got Husqvarna grips here versus just plain rubber grips on the Duke, but you got the same backlighting. So I mean, if that's something that you're looking for, a really nice suite of easy to use controls, I mean, you really got the same on both bikes.
And again, the other really big difference is suspension. As we have alluded before, the Husqvarna features the same front fork as the KTM. This is WP Apex 43mm front fork, but for some reason, Husqvarna has decided to put adjustability on it. So you get rebound and compression damping on the front of this bike, and you also get it in the rear too, which is a feature you do not find on any other beginner bike. To me, that is a really interesting feature, and I think going back to the mission statement, given that rugged urban exploration, you know, if it's a bit of a pothole-ridden city, maybe you want to dial in a little bit compression and rebound. Maybe you want to soften things up a little bit, because I certainly don't love having a super stiff suspension going through 3rd Street on Austin and just riding every single one of those bumps, you know?
It makes me wonder, though, is that really a beginner feature? You know, is that something that your average beginner is going to be like, oh, I'm going to go in and dial my preload, or are they going to be like, I'm going to not stall at this stoplight?
Yeah, yeah.
It makes it almost a little bit more desirable for this to be like a returning rider's second motorcycle.
Yeah, I mean, I was super jazzed when I picked this up at the dealership and I noticed it had adjustable suspension. I was like literally jaw on the floor. I was like, that is so cool. The other big thing about the Husqvarna versus the KTM is price. So the Husqvarna costs about $800 more than the KTM. This thing is priced at $62.99 versus $54.99 on the KTM. And you might think, well, that one's got a TFT display, Supermoto mode, why is it cheaper? Well, it's because the Husqvarna, once you look a little bit closer, is a really premium bike. It's got these cool features on it right here, this aluminum triple tree right here with the Svartpilen logo dialed in, all the little stitching and stuff. Spike, do you feel like it's worth the extra $800?
If you're looking for a bike that looks like this, and that sounds like a cop-out, but I would argue that this is a very polarizing motorcycle.
Yes.
Everybody says that KTM bikes are very aggressive looking, but I would say that this is like KTM to the next level.
Yeah.
This is something that you might see in like some futuristic sci-fi, near future sci-fi on Earth kind of thing. It's that big flat LED headlight, the shape of the tank, the fact that it's got the rack on top of the tank. It's a very aggressively styled motorcycle.
Yeah.
It feels like they shaped the tank out of like wood or clay, and then they've got everything just exactly set to match it.
Yeah.
It feels like one big piece on top of a motorcycle.
Yeah, and speaking on top of that as well, one thing I noticed as well sitting on the Husky versus KTM is you have a much taller seat height over here. So you have about 1.5 inches higher seat height than this bike over here. And this bike, actually, when we sat on it versus the MT-03, we're like, oh, this sits kind of tall. So honestly, for a beginner rider, definitely go and sit on this before you go and buy one, because you might not be able to ride it because it's kind of tall, nearly 33 inches of seat height over here, which is approaching like dirt bike territory. And also this seat cutout here feels a little motardy, a little dirt bikey to me. And honestly, this gas cutout here is one of the most unique gas tanks I've ever sat atop of. It cuts in such a unique way, and it really provides a very different riding experience, which is something we're going to do today. We're going to get both of these out on the road and going back to back and see what they're like. Spite, anything else you want to point out on these two machines?
The can does say Husqvarna on there.
And it says motorcycles on it, which I think is the only thing I've ever seen on any motorcycle to say motorcycle on the motorcycle, just in case you forgot what this is.
I mean, you never know. Some people get real distracted when they get into the dealership. But
it's true.
Honestly, if I were to take my pick between the two just on looks alone, I'd have to go with the Husky because it's just so different.
Yeah, it's super striking, really, really cool looking motorcycle.
But I do want to see if it's as peppy, as rowdy as the Duke, because this is such a fun motorcycle to ride.
Yeah, only one way to find out. Let's get them on the road. Alrighty guys, we're now mounted up on the KTM Duke 390 and the Husqvarna Svartpilen 401. We are in the urban jungle today. We normally go out to the hills, film some fun twisty road, but these, I think, are urban dwelling machines. This one is rugged for the urban exploration. So let's see how much urban exploration it can do. So I gotta tell you, the first thing I noticed on this thing is the seat height. It is undoubtedly taller than the KTM. No doubt about it.
The seat's also a hell of a lot narrower.
Yeah. Oh, this rides totally differently. Okay. Like, as soon as I took off on this thing, I'm like, oh, it's a totally different motorcycle. Yeah, so the seat is incredibly narrow.
Yeah, isn't just the whole bike super narrow?
Yeah, it feels like I'm sitting on a twig. It's really, really narrow. It's not a bad thing. It feels like a dirt bike because it's so narrow. It feels like a WR250 or a Supermoto or something like that. And the seat height kind of matches it too. Yeah, the tank shape is really giving me a totally different impression of this bike than the KTM. But the brakes and everything else and the throttle feels about the same. Since we've got that little exhaust on the Duke, it tends to feel a little bit different.
Yeah, it sounds a little zingier.
Yeah. It's a nice place to sit, though. I like the little bronze Husqvarna logo right here. And
it's got a lot more accent work than the Duke does.
Yeah.
Which it makes it feel a little bit more premium when you're sitting in the saddle.
Pulling away from the light here. Yeah, it doesn't feel quite as peppy as the Duke, but I think it's just because you have that zesty little exhaust on the Duke. One thing to note about these two bikes is even though the subframe is a little bit different on the Husky, the rake is the same, the trail is only 0.2 inches apart, so basically, like, it should in theory ride the same, but because the seat height is a little bit different and the tank shape is different, I really feel like it's riding super different. Also, the knobbies definitely give me a different sensation.
Yeah, this just feels a little bit more normal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's a little kind of esoteric quality to that thing just because of the way it's set up. And those knobbies, while they don't, you know, they're not something crazy like those Motaz tractionators that you had with the wild blocks on there where you felt the transition from upright to side blocks to upright again.
Yeah, that was definitely a 2080 tire that I had on the sled, which I actually switched back to these tires, so yeah.
Those are a little bit more progressive when you transition.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. A little harder to wheelie the Husky than the KTM, but it's very eager and willing to. But one big thing I wanted to test between these two bikes is let's find a real crappy, bumpy road somewhere here in downtown. 6th. Yeah, 6th will definitely do it for us. And let's do a suspension test for the rugged urban environment here. Okay, here we go. This is typical Austin crappy downtown road.
Yep. This is I'm already kind of feeling it coming through on the Duke.
Yeah, what I'm feeling honestly on the Svart is it's soaking up these bumps really nicely, honestly. Yeah, doing some stop and go here in the urban environment. Can you find, wow, I don't, yeah, maybe the transmission is different because I've never had this much trouble finding neutral on the Duke.
Yeah, no, the Duke, it's really easy to find neutral, but
maybe because this bike is breaking in and I'm, you know, maybe it's just got to break in a little bit. God damn, this transmission just was not working for me.
The crazy thing is how quick the transmission throw is. It's like all of a sudden it bottoms out when you're going up a gear.
Yeah.
Like you start moving it and you go through the full pull like you normally would and it like stops halfway. I didn't really get to feel it when I was riding up here on the Svart, but does it have that kind of sensation when you open the throttle of feeling the forks kind of extending underneath you?
Not as much, I wouldn't say. Just a little bit.
Because that's the fun thing about the Duke is the suspension basically just kind of allows the front tire to, you know, like the front forks extend a little bit when you give it gas. Makes it feel faster than it actually is.
You know, one thing I'm thinking of as well for our international audience is because the Svart is so thin, even though we are not legally allowed to lane split in Texas, this would be a fantastic lane split in motorcycle. You could really just squeeze between cars really easily with this thing.
I got to imagine it would make an actually really, really good scrambler if it had a little bit more ground clearance.
Totally.
Which is kind of a shame because it's already basically set up like a scrambler with the exception of the suspension travel.
Yeah.
Although I do love how you have the little travel gauges up at the front, those little rings on the front fork.
Yeah. Yeah, real race bike technology there. This to me is such a fantastic kind of city bike, commuter bike. It's doing really great in these kind of mixed conditions. You know, with the potholes and the bumps and that kind of stuff. I also love the fact that I know how cool it looks when I'm sitting on it. You know, I'm looking down.
Excellent. It looks really exotic. You know.
Yeah. It's definitely a conversation starter. You pull up to this and your favorite cafe or restaurant or whatever. Obviously no one's doing that right now because of pandemic shit, but in the future, you know, they might make fun of you because you can't find neutral, but you know what? You're gonna look super cool. There it is. Oh my god. you have to just like that. That's neutral. Just right there.
It's really funny though, seeing these right next to each other and listening to them do their things because they're exactly the same.
Yeah.
The same chatter is coming from this bike as that one.
Mm-hmm. I love how Husky gives you the Husky case on it, but it still has the Motorex sticker, just like the KTM.
Yup. Okay. Engine tested. All good for import.
Yeah. Except the neutral. They didn't okay that one. I love, I scooch my knees up and I just feel that extreme cutout on the tank. It's an interesting feeling.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that, to be honest. It feels a little, pointy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's interesting because the Husqvarna has a much more exotic curb appeal to it, but actually a much more conservative riding style to it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It feels much more relaxed when I'm on it than I want to... literally when I jump on the KTM, I'm like, oh, it's party time. I want to do wheelies. I want to flick this thing around. It literally makes me feel like such a different motorcyclist, whereas when I'm on the Svart here, I'm just like, oh, this is so nice and pleasant. I can just take this thing down the road, and I look really cool doing it, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's a really cool bike. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Remember, we're giving this motorcycle away. Be sure to check that out. We'll see you on the next one. Well, howdy, partner. How's it going? Now, this video's over, but I'll tell you what, you click on this one right over here, you can keep watching yourselves from Yam and Noob. And if y'all didn't know, we're based out of Austin, Texas, so click on that video, you might check out something cool.